Ew, gay people? Ugh.
Hello and welcome to Super Hell, aka the Mysteries Podcast, a show where two recovering supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch. Sorry for the delay. We're back. We are here now, going back to bi-weekly. Life happens, as they say. Oh, I forgot to say my name and my pronouns. Sorry, I got so distracted because Klaudia has changed her Zoom name to Sam Winchester has IBS. I forgot how the podcast works because I saw that and it did. I feel like it's a targeted attack. My name is Ollie. I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. It's fresh with a PH.
And my name is Klaudia, otherwise known as Sam Winchester has IBS.
That's so true.
My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on social media at Klaudia says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A says. Today we have two episodes that one is extremely important to the plot of seasons 1 through 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is a particularly memorable episode in that it's fucking traumatizing.
Dare I say shit is crazy. It's funny because I feel like up until this point, I've remembered these episodes from like the first time I watched them in high school, like stunning clarity. These two, I don't recall at all, like not even a little bit. I don't remember them. Even after watching them, I'm like, I don't have any memory of these.
I didn't remember them until certain scenes happened and it was like it unlocked something. And I was like, oh, I buried this deep. I think in the first few seasons, they do these like 1 word, 2 word episode titles. And I think they move away from that later on.
They do, which is sad. I kind of like it. They ran out of one word. Like they ran out of single words to use. They were like, shoot, we got to start going to phrases now.
Yeah, like Disney with animated films.
Yeah, I can't wait for the supernatural episode that's called Encanto.
We don't talk about, no, we can't go down that road.
We don't talk. You're so right.
We don't talk about Adam.
They really don't. You know who they also don't talk about in the last episode? Cass. We don't talk about.
Spoiler alert.
Oh my God. Spoiler alert for a show that ended a year ago.
We don't talk about Kaz because he's gay.
Because he's gay, and we don't like that here. Sorry, guys.
Also in the weeks that we've been off, a lot has happened at the CW.
A lot has happened at the CW. We are at the tail end of basically every show that has a lead who is a person of color or a woman has been canceled. I mean,
almost basically every show on the CW has been canceled except for like the Walker spinoff and the Supernatural prequel. And then there's a show that just like there's not much. I mean, this is not a surprise because they're trying to sell off the CW. I have this theory that Castiel finally allowing Castiel was because they knew the CW was going down the tubes and that eventually they were going to try to sell it because of the streaming wars. And they were like, fuck it. We don't care anymore. Like, I truly believe like that was the last piece. Like before they were like, well, we got to keep the straight viewers somehow with Supernatural watching. And now it's like, we're selling this shit out off for parts anyway. Fuck it. And I think that Castiel finally happening, that was the beginning of the end. If you are a CW employee listening to this,
so I have a question for CW employees. Do you think that the showrunners of Supernatural, the execs, whoever was like, we can't have gay people on network, do you think they're like, they watched Our Flag Means Death and were like, well, I guess it's time to die? Because
they watch good television?
But no, they're like, we got to be careful. We can't have 2 men kiss. It's like the most streamed show for 8 weeks in a row after it's ended. Like, do you think that they're like, oh, well, it's time for me to finally check out. My life is done now.
Yeah.
Listen, I still believe that if Castiel had become canon in like 2014, 2013, it could have saved the CW.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
like I'm not even saying that to be like a jokey joke. Like I 100% believe that.
That was also the era when I think both Jane the Virgin and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend were still on.
Yeah.
Two shows that were objectively some of the best shows on TV. And the CW was like, nah, we're not about that. Nope. Yeah. Never mind. At least they let Crazy Ex-Girlfriend finish. At least I got that. Shout out to all the fans of Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow. I'm sorry, guys. The new Batwoman.
Batwoman. I'm sorry. Roswell, New Mexico stands. I'm so sorry, guys.
You know, DC fans, you have taken such an L. I am so sorry.
Yeah. At least you still got good animated shows. At least Batman might be gay now or bi in the comics.
So our last episode released right after Misha Collins came out of the closet and then went back in it. So we talked about it on Twitter, but we never actually got to talk about it on the show. So in the time, because Supernatural never ends, in the time between our last episode and this one airing,
shit has happened. It has gone down.
Misha Collins has gone in and out of the closet, much like Sam Winchester in this episode. We'll get there. And the CW has decided we outie. No. We are canceling everything. They need to cancel that Supernatural prequel.
No one. Here's my thing. I fear that the CW, we talk a lot about this show. We talk a lot about Supernatural, but we talk a lot about how like, well, who is the target audience? And I think that is one of the big issues with the show in general. Like, I think one of the biggest things is that it doesn't know what its target audience is. And I think the fact that, for those of you who don't know, the Winchesters is a proposed and supposedly picked up spinoff that features John and Mary Winchester before the events of Supernatural. So their parents. And this proves to me that they don't understand what people who watch Supernatural were watching it for.
The homoeroticism.
Like, exactly. Like, people were watching for being like, maybe Dean and Cass are going to kiss one day. People were watching for that. And the people who weren't quite as driven by that were watching because of the idea of this, like, this partnership between two brothers who have both been through very distinct forms of trauma and are learning to overcome it together and are still sometimes falling prey to it, and watching that journey, going back and watching their dad who did a huge role in traumatizing them, and their mom too. Watching a show about that just shows me, I'm like, that is what you're picking up. Like, that is what you think Supernatural fans want to watch. I can guarantee not a single Supernatural fan that I know is like, I wonder what John Winchester was doing. Like, what?
This is the one time all Supernatural fans have been in agreement. I mean, there are some who are like, congrats, whatever. But here's my fear. They really are behind Walker for some fucking reason. I have this fear that, like, so for those who don't know, the CW is half owned by, the C is for CBS and the W is for Warner Brothers. CBS is now a part of Viacom CBS, now Paramount. Warner is now a part of Warner Brothers Discovery. And all the companies are now basically making their own streaming services, not interacting with each other anymore. So joint partnerships like this, unless they're international, are kind of going by the wayside. So they have been exploring selling the CW for a bit. And I have this fear in my heart that Walker and possibly the Winchester sequel could move to becoming HBO Max originals. And here's my thing. Here is my thing. One of Paramount's big IPs is Yellowstone, which I like to call the old racist white people MCU. They're making it is. If you don't know, and now they're making like several spin-off shows and whatever. It's like Yellowstone is what they wanted Supernatural to be, which is basically like the idealized version of Americana that never actually existed, but like is idealized. I am just thinking to myself, what if Warner Brothers Discovery makes Walker and the Walker spinoff into their old racist white people MCU to compete with Yellowstone?
Mm-hmm. That is hilarious, and I'm kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah, because
that is okay. No,
they're like, we need IP, we need franchises for everybody, and I'm like, oh no, Jared Padalecki may have provided.
What?
Oh no.
Jared Padalecki, you're never doing the right thing ever.
No.
When has Jared Padalecki been on the right side of history?
Literally never.
I don't think he said do you remember that convention he went to where he was like, if your Sam is non-binary, then that's your Sam, and I'm happy for you. Then proceeded to be like, if you think that Cass is gay, you're a fucking idiot.
And I was like, you know what? At least he's honest. At least he's being honest.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't have to guess what he's thinking. He says it. He will go on Twitter. He will say anything. I fear if you ask.
Anyways, justice for Wayward Sisters, which was supposed to be the supernatural spinoff about Claire and the other little girlies. That would have been an absolute slay. And fuck the CW. I mean, this is a supernatural podcast, so I believe that the thesis is always fuck the CW.
Yeah, that is the thesis, is like, maybe if you had let gay people,
yeah, and also
be on it.
Also, we do have to discuss Misha Collins going in and out of the closet briefly.
Okay, no, I have very few thoughts on this because I feel like there's not a lot that we can say that hasn't already been said. However, I do think that the biggest thing about it is like, my question, and also to be completely fair, I want to come out and say this is not demeaning of any person because of their sexuality. This has nothing to do with like him, any struggles that he may have with that. Like, that is absolutely not the point and absolutely not what we were talking about. And I think that we can talk about it because that's not what he was talking about. He was not having this like, oh, I'm going to come out and then I had a struggle, so I went back in the closet. It was him quote unquote misspeaking. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, he is bi, it was just slip of the tongue, like whatever. I'm like, I don't care. What I think is funny is him being like, I am all of these things, bisexual, an introvert, and an extrovert. And then the next day, not even the next day, sir, plan B wouldn't have worked for you. Like, not even the next day, like 3 days later is like, I misspoke, didn't clarify what he was trying to say, because I'm like, so, like, what? Like, am I crazy? What else could that have possibly meant? Like, what else?
Here's my thing. Didn't he like co-write a book about being a swinger with his wife?
Did. Yes.
Didn't he like write poetry about being a little gay? And like maybe he experimented and then he's like, nah, I only like women. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on a real person, but also I do feel like I gaslit myself a little bit with that.
No, like that was the thing. I feel bad for him. It was almost like he came out as bi and everyone was like, I'm not surprised. And then he was like, oh.
He's like, I'm going back in the closet.
He was like, that was an accident. You guys are bitches. I hate the LGBTQs. I also love him apologizing for the harm that he did to the community. I'm like,
you were in Supernatural. The harm has already been done.
Yeah, anything you do now is baby shit compared to that, is kindergarten compared to this. Like, this is nothing. That man, he's confounding me.
I remember seeing those tweets go up in real time and I thought it was hallucinating.
No.
It was almost as crazy as November 5th. Like, it was almost that bad.
No, here's the thing. I don't think it was, I have to say, I don't think it was anyone near November 5th for me.
But
I think it was producing the same chemical cocktail in my brain.
Absolutely.
And I can't identify it, but like, I do think I think I called you to talk about this. I was driving.
Oh, yeah.
I was driving somewhere and I was like, hey, I'm in the car right now, but we were fighting for our lives. I thought that was very funny. I'm so sorry if you do feel like if you feel in any way like betrayed or any way like upset about it. I'm really sorry. I know it's probably like really weird when someone you look up to is like, I'm like you. Actually, I'm not. Like, it's a really like, and that's kind of why we're laughing about it too, is because that is like a deeply upsetting situation. And I'm also like, I fear that this is maybe Misha's sign to stop going to conventions as consistently.
Literally.
Because I know he needs to make the coin, but like, sir, I worry for you sometimes.
I mean, if they didn't learn in the first 15 seasons, then when are they ever going to learn, you know?
That is true.
We're on season 17 of Supernatural.
When are they releasing? Oh, you know what we should do?
Oh no.
You know how there was that whole conspiracy that there was going to be a secret last episode of Sherlock?
I can't do this.
We should do that with a secret, like, supernatural finale.
There were rumors of that, and people were like, we can't do this again.
But I think it's been long enough. Now is the time.
No, please.
But you don't want, this is this new secret one. Produced by me.
We can't keep getting away with this. Between that and the amount of also in the time that between our two episodes, they announced the 14th Doctor.
Yeah. I have not watched Doctor Who in a minute. Like, I think I've watched a couple episodes when I was like in high school. And now I'm like, do I need to?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah. I'm like, do I need to check that out? Jodie Whittaker already, I was like, girly.
Jodie Whittaker is absolutely slaying.
I know. I was like, you are very slay.
This is quickly becoming a Superlock moment. But I do just want to
say, no, and I did just bring up Sherlock.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah. Well, I was gonna bring it up only because I was like, maybe for those who are not in the know, Russell T Davies, the beloved showrunner who was a part of Doctor Who for several seasons when they brought it back, when they revived it in 2005, he is coming back to Doctor Who. I have some complicated feelings on that. This is not a Doctor Who podcast, so we will not be discussing that right now. He's coming back to Doctor Who, and then they announced the 14th Doctor, who is, I think his character's name Eric in Sex Education. A bit of a slay. They announced the 14th Doctor, and then they were like, what if the Doctor was not a white person? You're like, so true. I mean, they already have done the Doctor not being a white person. Shout out to the fugitive Doctor. We love you, girly. But like the permanent Doctor, one might say. And then they were like, hey, so for the big 60th anniversary special that's coming, David Tennant and Catherine Tate are coming back. They had to quickly announce a lot of stuff because they started filming in Cardiff and people can see it and it's been leaking. So Wilfred is back, Catherine Tate and David Tennant are back. And then they announced that who is the girl from Heartstopper, the trans girl from Heartstopper. I don't remember her character's name. The real girl's name is Yasmin. They announced that she's going to be in Doctor Who playing a character named Rose. Don't know what that means. And don't know if she's going to be a permanent trans companion of color, which would be a bit of a slay, or if she's just going to be a character in the special. No idea. So like, it's been a slay. Rest
in peace to the Superlock. Who is persevering?
I mean, it always, and here's my thing is like, so there's been all these people being like, oh my God, Doctor Who's back, whatever. Much like Supernatural, with Doctor Who, I am one of the few people who has stuck around and kept watching.
Klaudia's been in the trenches so many times.
I have been in the motherfucking trenches.
You deserve a veteran's discount for so many things.
And here's the thing. I suffered through the rest of Stephen Moffat's era. I am famous for how much I dislike that man. That being said, there are many slays in his era. Bill Potts, Peter Capaldi, you are the loves of my life. And then 13's era, I know some people really hate it. I think it's a bit of a slay. And also canonical gay people.
Yeah.
The doctor is like, hello, my female companion. We should kiss on the mouth, but we can't because I am unfortunately neurodivergent and a minor. And that's not me joking. She literally does say that. She's like, she literally says, I know this is a bit of a spoiler. She literally is like, if I could pick someone, if I could be with someone, it would be you, but I can't because I got to run around and be neurodivergent basically. And you're like, hello. There are shot for shot parallels with Our Flag Means Death because the last special was a pirate special. The two lesbians, they do have a discussion on the beach. That's all I'm gonna say. So everyone's like, oh, Doctor Who's good again. I'm like, you have been missing out on 13 and Yasmin literally about to fucking kiss on the mouth. Be quiet. Like I thought I was being queer baited by Doctor Who in the way that Supernatural queer baited me. Like I was in the motherfucking trenches. So it doesn't actually take a long time to catch up because Doctor Who decided we're going to have bigger budgets and less episodes per season and then like go away for 2 years at a time. So you're like, it feels like it's a lot to catch up on. It's not.
Something I will say, as someone who's rewatching Supernatural and Pretty
Yeah.
Little Liars right now, less truly is more sometimes. So,
Yeah.
that's the problem. I feel like I chose the wrong show to rewatch. So now I'm like, I know a lot about Ezra Fitz, unfortunately, but
Yeah. And I mean, also there's something to be said of like just starting with the new doctor. That's totally fine as well. This is a podcast about Supernatural. We are going to discuss it.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I forgot.
But also the thesis of this podcast is you can just listen to us talk about it, never watch Supernatural. So in this case, I'm gonna say watch Doctor Who. There's actual gay people on it, and it's actually good.
I fear it is. I fear we may need to. Sorry guys, next episode's gonna be a super Lock episode.
Next episode, I will be talking about 13 and Yaz kissing on the mouth for an hour.
Yeah, I love the idea of us just like, you know what I fear, Klaudia?
Yeah.
You know what I'm afraid of?
Us becoming a Doctor Who podcast?
No, I'm afraid that we're a lot like My Favorite Murder, because we have just had like a shot the ship in a incomprehensible way for about 30 minutes.
Hey, that's what the McElroys do. We just
but now we're gonna read from a wiki about a case that we're talking about, and we're also gonna talk a lot about the police. Oh my god, I want to be Georgia. Give me Karen.
No, I hate it here. Oh my god, like don't get murdered.
Stay sexy and don't get murdered.
Now that we've talked about Sherlock and Doctor.
Now we've talked about the Who Lock, we can talk about the super.
Yeah. So these two episodes. This first episode, the plot is very important. It's called Nightmare, which is we're already starting out strong.
I will also say at the top, there are some very heavy themes in this episode.
I would say a content warning for suicide and domestic and child abuse.
Yeah.
Because this episode they really said we're putting this on network fucking television.
Yeah, it was it's quite dark. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. But you may want to skip ahead a little bit if you are sensitive to those things.
Yeah. They really dealt with some dark shit in these early episodes.
What happened? Truly.
They were like, what if we did stupid little shit instead? Which is, you know what? That's kind of a slay. I understand.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've said this a couple times before. I think also they're like, okay, these are two guys that are trying to solve crimes that aren't actually crimes. They're monsters. And so you're going to deal with the weird and bad shit that humanity does. I think if you're dealing with humans, even if they're interacting with monsters, I think that's kind of the theme of these both episodes is like, and I think in early seasons, they're like, okay, we have to go through like, okay, what happens when someone with powers or whatever, you know,
does XYZ,
may possibly be justified in murdering someone, or when in the second episode, you know, there weren't really any monsters at all, and maybe people are just shitty. Like those are actual questions that I think like there's a lot of episodes in this first season that are very we got to get that question out of the way in order to explore the rest of it, and like almost in a world building kind of way of like, yeah, how does that work in the world we are building? This opening scene of this episode is one that I had buried because it was so fucking scary. This show used to be scary.
Yeah, I will say these two episodes, I was like, oh, these are actually quite chilling.
I was like, oh my God. Basically they're in Michigan. This man, he pulls his car into his garage. The garage door closes behind him. And then all of his car doors lock and the car is still on and it starts pumping out exhaust fumes and he can't turn the car off. Yeah. And he slowly dies from carbon monoxide poisoning, which is, I remember watching this and being like, I am never going into a garage.
I will say the thing that does get me is that this does make carbon monoxide poisoning look like it happens so fast. Like this dude, I know it does. And obviously make sure you open your garage door if your car is on, because you will die. Yeah. But it's just crazy because this dude is like screaming, crying, throwing up. Like he is like, ah! And then he dies so fast. It's so dramatic. And I'm like, I'm very sorry that happened to you. Well, I'm not, but it was messed up. It happened really fast.
Yeah, you're like, holy shit.
That was some evil carbon monoxide.
Yeah. And then it cuts to Sam waking up from a dream. Basically, Sam has dreamt this man's death. And he's like, Dean, we have to go to Michigan. This is gonna happen. And Dean's like, sure, Jan. But he goes along with it because Sam is having a fucking meltdown, and they go off the license plate in his dream. He's like, okay, I think this is where I have to go. Sam, he's girl bossing. He contacts the police and gets the name of the car's owner. I don't know how you could do that. I don't think that's
so. Yeah, like the way that he did it was that he had like Sam had like a fake badge of a federal agent and was like, here's my name on the phone. And he was like, I need you to run tags. So I think he called like the local police, right?
Yeah.
And he was like pretended to be a federal agent. He was like, I just need you to run these tags for me and tell me who the car belongs to. So like, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So the guy's name is Jim Miller. 2
Sounds
hours
like a real upstanding guy.
Yeah. 2 hours later, they get there and they are too late. There's ambulances everywhere. They're taking a dead body out of the garage. This guy is dead, and his family is like standing outside crying, like this whole thing. There's like a neighbor standing outside, kind of like in the domestic violence episode. When
there's a lot of episodes about that, huh?
Yeah. And there's a woman standing outside who's like, oh, you seem like a really like normal and happy guy. I guess you never know like what's happening behind the scenes. And because Dean and Sam, they go up and they're like, hey, like what happened? And she's like, oh, he killed himself. It was suicide. And Sam was like, no, it was not. I saw there was a fucked up little spirit that killed this man. And Dean's like, okay, sure. And
yeah, and this whole time Dean is like, Sam, that was a dream. It's probably just a coincidence. And Sam was like, Bessie, I fear that this is exactly what I saw. So I don't think it's maybe a coincidence.
Yeah. So this is where some of the most iconic supernatural gifts come from. As we reach midway through the season, we have gotten to the brothers getting into their disguise game.
Yes, they are serving Party City realness in this episode.
They dress up as priests. Chuck, who is writing the story, God, had a real laugh with this one. A real fucking laugh with this one. They visit the house during, I guess, the reception after the funeral, and they're like, hi, we're just some junior priests. we want to talk to people. I'm like, you're just gonna let some random people who say they are priests into your okay, I have some questions.
Fair, they've got the little white square on their neck, so
Yeah, but junior, I don't think
who needs a badge?
Junior priests makes me think that it's like, I don't know, like it's like an MLM. Jesus at the Last Supper. Hey, girly.
Hey, girlies. So I brought 12 of my closest friends here to this retreat.
It was a Mary Kay party.
Was the Last Supper Mary Kay party discussed?
Not clickbait.
Not clickbait.
He was like, I want you to try out my new products.
It's my flesh and blood.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's actually bread and wine.
Yeah. And all of the popes after that were like, and if you enter my upline, so we have the junior priest thing. Also in this scene, we have Dean talking about the Lord's guidance.
I was screaming, crying, throwing up when this happened because Dean is really hamming up. Like he is like, they are pretending to be junior priests. And he is like, yes, it is as the Lord has commanded it. Like he is eating it up.
It's really, I hope someone on YouTube has like taken these early season moments and then juxtaposed them against Dean being like, I'm gonna go fucking kill God. like just him being like, the Lord works in mysterious ways, and then later him be like, fuck Chuck, I'm gonna go kill that motherfucker. He's so funny to me in my head. So yeah, they pretend to be priests. We don't have time to unpack that. Dean is eating through this entire scene, which is really funny.
And they are like little like hot dog weenies that have been served, I guess, at this funeral.
Yeah, they were eating pigs in a blanket.
I mean, honestly, I feel like pigs. If I go to a funeral and there aren't pigs in a blanket, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I hope there's pigs in a blanket at my funeral.
Yeah, I think pigs in a blanket are a must.
Yeah. So they meet the dead guy's brother, Roger. They talk to his wife, Alice, who is played by one of the aunts from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, Aunt Zelda was off the shits in this episode.
Yeah, Aunt Zelda, girly, what were you doing? And then they see Max, who is Jim's kid. I don't know if he's a teenager or if he's like a young adult, and he's like fucked up because he's the one who found his father.
Yeah, he's like upset, crying,
not looking well.
He's looking a little like he is looking a little bit like someone who would be on 4chan.
Yeah,
like that was my, I don't know if that is in line with his character, but that was my first instinct upon seeing him.
Yeah. So Dean goes around the house and he's searching for like spirit stuff. This part was funny to me because he's going around with his little EMF detector, but it's like been upgraded. It has like a little screen. It has these like green lights, whatever.
Beams. It's like infrared.
I was like, didn't you jerry rig this from a Walkman before? Like, why is it fancy now? I don't understand.
YouTube.
Did YouTube exist at that time?
What was it? 2005? Ooh. Yeah, this episode came out in February 2006.
And when did YouTube come out?
Almost exactly a year to the day before this episode. So I'm just saying, Dean Winchester found out about this cool new website, YouTube. He said, okay, I'm becoming an electrical engineer right now, immediately. Slay. Absolutely. Good for him.
Yeah. So yeah, he's like checking around the house with his weird little thing. And Sam, of course, Sam's the talker. So Sam is talking to a stoic Max.
Talker, Texas Ranger. It's like Walker, but it's Talker.
Oh my God, that's our official Walker podcast.
Talker,
Texas Ranger. You're done.
Yeah, we better slow down with how fast we're getting through these seasons of Supernatural, because I fear that's what's next for us.
So Dean, he doesn't find anything. There's nothing in the house's history. Oh, there's a part in here where Sam is talking to the kid. Apparently they're the same age. And
I mean, they might not be. He might be a little younger, but he's like late teens, early 20s style.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be another sort of metaphor episode, I believe, because he's like, I think my family's cursed or something. And then Sam's like, yeah, I understand like losing a parent and not knowing what to do about it, whatever. And you're like, oh, maybe you need to go to therapy. And then Sam, when they're like, okay, we're gonna like check out historical records of like is there anything around this house? Were there any like natural disasters or a battleground or tribal grounds or any atrocity? And I was like, Sam, #land back. The stealing of tribal lands is an atrocity. So think on that one. Winchester.
Sam Winchester, I fear he is kind of flopping. Like in these last couple of episodes, he has been kind of a flop.
Yeah. So they go back to their hotel and Sam just starts having a literal fucking meltdown and a migraine, and he gets in their vision of Roger Miller, who was the brother at his apartment.
He was the brother, the gentleman who died. Like he had his whole family there. Roger was his brother, who was kind of a dick to them.
Yeah, he was.
Because, like, to be fair, he was like, they showed up dressed as priests to this thing, and he was like, I don't really think religion is gonna save my brother because he is already dead. But that was like
damn
earlier, and I'm like, okay, I mean, that's like interesting take,
but also get off of atheist YouTube.
Literally, he's like, I'm an atheist, guys, so if you could leave, like
I believe in science, and
that was
I saw that on Jordan Peterson's YouTube channel.
No,
we're slandering this
my
man.
favorite musician is Skrillex.
No, don't slander Skrillex like that.
Skrillex is a Jordan Peterson stan, so that's
what?
Did you not know that?
No. This is horrible. Max, what the fuck is wrong? Okay. So he sees that there's a window open. The brother Roger, he goes to close it. It reopens by itself. He tries to close it again. And then he kind of like sticks his head out the window and be like, the fuck is wrong with it? And the window comes down and decapitates him and chops his head off. I don't believe that is how windows work.
Well, I mean, if it's like a really good window, you're getting that airtight seal.
I don't think that's how it works. I do remember this traumatizing me. Like I didn't actively remember it, but then I saw it and I was like, oh, this fucked me up when I saw it the first time. And obviously Sam is seeing this in a vision. So they're like, we gotta go. We gotta stop this from happening. They go to his address and they intercept him outside his home and he ignores them. And he's like, you guys are fucking crazy. And
he's like, what are you, missionaries?
Yeah.
Get away from me.
Yeah. And he goes in to secure the apartment. And in Dean and Sam fashion, I'm sure you are sensing a pattern. They break into his house through a side door and they run up the fire escape. And again, they're too late. This man has died by window decapitation. There's no signs. There's no ghostly activity. There's nothing. And Dean is like, maybe their family's just cursed. And they're like, nah, like, and Sam's like, our family is cursed. And I'm like, oh, Chuck, I'm sure you laughed at that line too. So they go back and they visit Max, the kid. And he doesn't have anything to add. And he's like, yeah, my family used to live in this old house across town. And our uncle, Roger, the one who just died, he lived next door. And they go to the house and they talk to a neighbor. And the neighbor's like, yeah, to be honest, like not to like spill beans on like people who I have no business about to you random strangers. But Jim and his brother Roger, they both used to beat Max, the kid, all the time. And the stepmother, Alice, did nothing. It was pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. And not only did she do nothing, she would like watch and just be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he does at one point say, like, I know of at least 2 times that Jim broke the kid's arm.
Yeah. And he's like,
it's not good. Like, it's not even.
I called the police a bunch of times, did nothing. Again, a critique. The police cannot help us.
This random neighbor said, anyway, the police suck. So
a cab. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, Max's mother died in a car accident. And then Sam has a fucking conniption when he says that. Like Sam has this like, oh, my head, and like collapses inwards. And he has this vision basically of Max confronting his stepmother about how she didn't help at all. And this part I remembered, he levitates a knife and he kills her with it, with his mind, killing you with my mind. And he's like, oh fuck, we need to stop Max from doing that. Him and Dean also have a conversation in the car, of like, Dean's like, what are we gonna do? And Sam's like, I'll handle it. Like, we can't just kill a regular human being. We can't just kill Max. And Dean's like, I think we can. And Sam's like, no, I don't think we should. And this is, I think, one of the first episodes where they start to grapple with this of like, who is actually a monster kind of deal, which is actually a pretty big theme in the show. So, we're getting there. And like, who are they to decide who lives and dies, sort of thing. And obviously it's tied in with the fact that like Sam is like, am I a monster? Which becomes a really big thing even for Dean later as well. And they get to the house and Sam's vision has already started basically. And they go in the kitchen.
An important thing to also note about this part, as they were going in, Sam is like, we can't kill him. He's a person who has abilities.
Yeah.
And Dean is like, okay, well, you can try to talk to him, and brings a fucking gun. He brings like a Glock. He's like, all right.
Well, he always has a Glock.
No, I know, but he makes a point. It makes a point of showing him like get it and like tuck it into his pants, like, to be like,
here's a mouse tool we'll use for later.
And won't we use it later?
Dean brings a gun into the house, and they're like,
the vision has like already started at this point.
Yeah. Like, and they go in and they're like, hey, everything okay in here? Can we just talk to Max outside? I'm like, please imagine you're having a very emotionally charged psychic conversation with your stepmother, who has let abuse happen to you, whatever. And these random guys who used to be dressed as fucking priests will walk into your house and they're like, hey, can we have a private conversation outside?
Can I steal you away?
Yeah. Can we can we have like a one-on-one outside? Like whatever. I was like, this is truly unhinged. Again, and this is like they're like, in this case, it's not white male privilege, but this is kind of like Winchester privilege at this point of just like they just fucking do things no normal human being would get away with.
I think it's about the confidence.
Yeah. They just like walk in, like imagine them walking into your house and being like, hey, can we just like have, and you're like, I guess? What the fuck? I think that's why a lot of things happen in this show. So he's like, Sam's like, okay, you need to let Dean and your stepmother, you need to like have them leave. And Max is like, okay, fine, if we can talk alone. And Dean and my stepmother have to wait upstairs. And so the stepmother is already injured. She's not dead, but she's like injured. And so like Dean takes her upstairs, and Sam, they have their little, hey, we're the same kind of moment. And Sam is like, hey, don't kill your stepmother. And Max is like, yeah, my dad was still beating me like a week ago. And he's like, yeah, and none of this. My dad was still beating me a while ago, and I just wanted this all to fucking stop. And Sam's like, well, why didn't you leave? And again, that was not very Yasin Slay of Sam, because like, that's not what you say to victims of abuse, my guy. And he's like, why didn't you leave? He's like, because he could have found me and kept beating me. Like, fuck off, Sam. And yeah, fuck off, Sam.
Yeah, Sam, your slay is not happening right now.
Sam, your praxis is at a level 0. You have not examined your own biases here. So at this point, Max is like, yeah, so when I was a kid, my mom died in my nursery when I was a baby. And my dad used to get super drunk and super fucked up and would like rant and rave that my mother was pinned to the ceiling and burned to death. And Sam's like, okay, so he was drunk, but he wasn't making that up. That also happened to my mother. And I also have vision. So we're definitely connected. And Max is like, are you fucking kidding me? What the fuck? And he's like, no, you're fucking with me, whatever. And he's like, no, it also did happen to my girlfriend. Like he was not dreaming that one up. And
yeah, it's like, unfortunately, I have seen it firsthand, dude. So
yeah,
if we could collab, that would be great.
Yeah. And he's like, so he starts like connecting the dots like fucking Charlie Day. And he's like, okay, so our psychic abilities, they manifested kind of around the same time, about like 7 months ago. And Max, yours are really far along. Like you can like move shit. And Max is like, you know what? Fuck this. And he throws Sam in a closet.
Just like Misha Collins.
Just like Misha Collins. And this is and then
this scene is crazy. This is
this scene is
big
fucking
content
insane.
warning.
So then Max goes upstairs and he goes after Dean and Alice. And he draws a gun on Dean. And by drawing a gun, he does make it levitate. And they're like, where the fuck this man get a gun?
Yeah. And Dean is like, oh, I don't know. Dean is like, listen, Alice, you're a bitch, but you're gonna have to go through me to get to her.
Yeah. And Dean, he stops Max from shooting his stepmother. Max shoots Dean in the head, and then you see that is Sam having another vision.
Yeah, it is quite scary, because I was like the way this is framed to make you think like, oh, that just happened and Dean has just been shot in the head.
Yeah. And so
Sam with his own gun.
Sam has been forcibly thrown into the closet and then has this vision that Dean died. Oh, foreshadowing. And
where was that, Sam? Where was this vision when the rusty nail came into play?
Yeah. What about the rusty nail, Sam?
Wow, Sam.
And so Sam was like, holy shit. And he now manifests like being able to move shit telekinetically. And this dresser that had been pushed in front of the door of the closet, he pushes it away with his mind. And then he gets himself out of the closet. Congrats, happy Pride.
Woo!
Sam Winchester.
Be who you are.
Be who you are. He runs up the stairs and he's like seeing the scene happen, like play out, and he's like, Max, you can't, like, this is not gonna happen. And then Max uses his mind to take the floating gun and turn it on himself and then kills himself. And you're like, holy shit. I buried this because it was so fucked up. And
it's funny. It was not like it's interesting. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is a Sarah Gamble episode and Rael Tucker. So this is and I think it's obvious because their episodes do always kind of slap. Like, this was a very tense scene, but it was like, I think it was quite good. Like, it was very well done, but it was deeply, deeply upsetting.
Yeah. Also, Sam learned how to use the Force. Use the Force, Sam.
He's getting ready for Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah. Alice, the stepmother, she gives a cover story to explain like what happened.
Yeah, because the cops show up. Like, I guess they called the police.
And they're like, what the fuck? And Sam has this moment of like, basically he has this conversation with Dean that's very interesting, where he's talking about his special little abilities, and he's like, hey Dean, horrible news, I can move shit with my mind just like Max. And Dean's like, okay. And he's like, and Dean's like, okay, well, just don't do that. And
he literally does say, just don't, just stop.
Just don't. And he goes, I can't turn it on and off. And I was like, did Sam just come out of the closet and then
twice in one episode?
Yeah. And then Dean was like, okay, just don't be gay around me.
Hashtag don't say gay.
Like, we talk a lot about Dean being queer coded, but like now we understand Sam is very queer coded, especially because he has the secret that he has to hide and like this like special thing that he can't relate with his brother with. Like, the queer coding with Sam is off the fucking hook. And he says, aren't you worried that I could turn into Max or something? And Dean's like, nah. And they have this little moment where Dean's like, no, because and Sam's like, yeah, because we're different, because we had our dad to stabilize us. He did not decide to start beating us or become a drunk. He just decided to go crazy, start hunting demons, and then training us from an early age, and emotionally abuse us instead.
To be fair, the way that Sam says this in the episode is he's like, I do hate our dad, but to be fair, I'm happy that he was this dad and not Max's dad.
Yeah, the bar was on the fucking ground. The
fact that John Winchester gets a not as bad as you could have been medal.
Yeah, I'm like, and I still hate you, stupid raggedy bitch.
So true.
And he wonders if this demon is after him and Max. And Dean says, and this was where I did start crying a little bit.
This was crazy.
Dean does the like Mrs. Lovett, Sweeney Todd, nothing's gonna harm you, not while I'm around. And I'm like, oh no.
Because literally, like, Sam is like, oh, because he's like, I'm not worried that's gonna happen. Dean is like, I'm not worried that's gonna happen to you. And Sam's like, oh, why? Because we have our dad. Like, that's great, and I appreciate dad, but he's not here. And Dean's like, no, you have me.
Because you have me.
No, I was like, oh my God, that it did hit quite a bit.
I was like, oh, that's the thesis of the show. I was like, oh, I'm in pain. I'm just thinking about when Dean dies on the rusty.
Why does he do that? Just don't.
Literally, just don't. Yeah, and then right after that, Dean's like, we should go to Vegas. We clean up.
Yeah, he's like, with your little future ability, hell yeah, dude.
We're going to the craps table.
No, it's so funny. Sam is like, I'm so troubled. And Dean's like, that'd be funny if we went to Vegas, wouldn't it? Sam's like, I hate you.
They really are two gay people who hate each other.
They really are. I love that for them.
Featured supernatural beings.
I know.
For this episode, special children, Max Miller and Stuart.
Special children. That is me whenever I'm like talking about any of my stupid little blorbos from my shows. Those are my special children.
My special children, Sam Winchester.
He is a special child.
He is.
Now we get to season 1, episode 15. It is called The Benders.
Futurama reference.
It's about Bender. It's all a bunch of robots voiced by John DiMaggio, and they come out and they're like, "Hey, Sam and Dean." That's how Bender from Futurama sounds. In case you didn't
Kiss my shiny metal ass, Dean Winchester.
So let's set the scene. Hibbing, Minnesota. And I am obsessed with the fact that this takes place in Minnesota, and I'll explain why later. But a young boy, Evan, a child, looks out of his window. And what does he see? But a man taking out the garbage. Then he hears something strange. The dude like leans to look under his car. And then it cuts back to Evan, this child, and he's like, whoa. And we hear the sound of like almost like a monsterish kind of sound. And then the dude is gone. And it looked like he got like pulled under the car. The next scene, this cuts to the chase real fast because that's the whole cold open.
And that shit scared me about like the underneath of cars for again.
Oh yeah.
Just like with the sink with the earlier episode, it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, it is like, I will say about these two, again, they were pretty freaky. So then we see Sam and Dean. They are dressed up as state police and they are interviewing this boy. And his mother's like, he didn't see anything. He's just making up stories. And they're like, well, that's okay. We'd love to hear it no matter how weird it is. And the kid is like, it's crazy. He was getting like, I saw this guy get pulled like under his car. And then I heard like a monster screaming, like a screech. It was very scary. So yeah. So Sam and Dean are like bonding with this little child who has just witnessed something very scary. And then the mother is like, yeah, again, like he was watching kind of a scary movie. So, you know, don't worry about it. So Sam and Dean are like, all right, cool. So they leave and go to this bar and they're regrouping and they're kind of having this conversation. Like maybe this isn't our type of issue. Like this guy did get abducted and the county does have a higher than average disappearance rate. And their dad in his stupid little journal had marked that this area has a problem with a quote unquote phantom abductor. And then they go through kind of a laundry list of like, what does that mean? Like, it's like a ghost or a spirit, but the kid said it sounded like a monster. So they're kind of trying to toy with this idea of like, is this our problem? Like, what is it? Sam is like, all right, well, we'll think about it. He steps outside and he hears a weird noise. And he goes and like looks under this car and there's this really scary jump scare, but it is a cat. So it's like he leans under this car and he's like kind of looking in and then you just see a cat and it's very funny.
For the dog episode when Dean turned into a dog.
I can't get into that. But Sam's like, oh my God, that is a cat. That is funny. So he's like, oh my God, okay, that was stupid. But then he goes to get in the car and we see like a shot of just his feet. And then he's like, whoa. And then it cuts to a little later where Dean is coming outside and he's like, hey, Sam. Sam is gone. Sam is missing. Absolutely gone. And Dean's like, uh-oh, that's no good. My little guy is missing. And he's running around asking people leaving the bar, like, hey, did you see this guy? Please help me. Everyone's like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But he sees a security camera or like a traffic camera. And he's like, it's a traffic camera. Like okay, if I figure out what happened with that traffic camera, that was pointed right at the parking lot. I can figure out what happened to Sam. So Dean, little smarty farty, goes to the police office in town, the local police, and is meeting with the deputy. And she is a girl boss, derogatory, honestly. I fear she's not a very good cop, but she is a cop and she's deputy.
So yeah, girl boss derogatory. Yeah, absolutely. Hibbing, Minnesota. I did forget this. That is where our favorite little bestie, Donna from later seasons is from.
Oh my god,
she's a cop in. So my headcanon is that this bitch fucking eats it or is super inept, and Donna has to either work with her or replace her.
I fear that is the case because her name is Kathleen, and Dean is like, hey, so girly, I really need to see that video camera. I am from the state police. My cousin, Sam Winchester, is missing, and I know he got taken. And she's like, so are you here investigating a disappearance? And he's like, no, I just need to see the camera. And she's like, okay, well, I can't really do that. You are going to have to fill out a missing persons report. And he's like, no, I already have a lead. I know exactly where it was. I just need the camera footage.
White male privilege really just strikes again.
Really, but also he's like, I'm pulling one over right now. And she is a pushover. I'm sorry. I don't want to be disrespectful to women, but she's a
cop. It's fine.
She's also not giving the slay that she thinks she is, because she fully is like, you can't come. I'm the deputy. And he's like, okay, but he's my cousin and I'm supposed to look out for him. And she's like, okay, let me look up his file. She pulls up his file and she's like, okay, Sam Winchester, I don't see anything on him. Dean Winchester, his brother, died a couple months ago because people think Dean is dead legally. So anyway, just a fun note that they drop in there. But she's like, okay, fine, you can come with me. I just need to go. We need to go to like the place where the records are stored. So let's go.
Wait, this is also the part where she's like, oh, and he was suspected of murder before he died. And he's like, yeah, Dean's the black sheep of the family. Handsome though. And you're like, that's a little gay, Dean.
Imagine saying that about he's impersonating Sam's cousin. Imagine saying that about your cousin.
Dean Winchester.
Dean Winchester, you are not normal. The Kansas jumped out.
Back it up. Oh, also, this is the scene where they're like Winchester, and she's like, oh, like the rifle. Like that's the only time they ever acknowledged, that they're named after the gun. Yeah. And boy, does the gun play a big role later on. Well, it's not a rifle though. And she says like the rifle, whatever. Yeah. Oh, also apparently this is a little fun fact trivia. In this part of the episode, on the screen, it says that Sam Winchester is 6'4". It says that Dean is 6'4" as well.
Dean is lying on his driver's license how tall he is.
In reality, he's
that is 6'1". Hilarious.
In reality, he is 6'1".
That is so funny. Are you kidding? Character height is something that I have a problem about because I will look that shit up. Like I will know. Then we cut to Sam. He wakes up. He's in like a wrought iron cage. And he is like, girl, what is happening? He looks over and he sees some dude who looks like he's dead. And he's like, what? And as this is happening, we see Sam like waking up, and then it cuts back to Dean and this officer, Kathleen. And they've like just gotten coffee, I guess. And she's like, oh, here, I got this picture printed out. You can see that we take pictures every 3 seconds of that stretch of road. Here is one picture that takes place between your cousin coming out and him disappearing. And it's this trailer. It's like this just truck. And Dean's like, that's weird because the license plate looks really new, but the truck looks like nasty. So they've probably like stolen the license plate off of it. So they're like, okay, cool. Interesting. As this conversation is happening, a old ass truck drives by, just like some random van, and it makes like a screeching noise. And Dean is like, oh my God, that sounds like a screeching noise. that's probably what the kid was talking about. Like that was just someone with a old busted car. Like it probably wasn't a monster. It was someone kidnapping someone in a car. So Dean is like putting the pieces together of like, okay, this might just be people. But he's like, no, that can't be. They just random people are not getting Sam.
He's like, damn, Sam, get good. He does actually say that later. He's like, get good. Oh, also, Sam in the cage, a little bit of foreshadowing.
Stop.
If I was Chuck, I would think that's very funny.
Yeah, but if you were Chuck, we'd be having a whole lot of issues.
I don't know. I think I'd be pretty
probably less than actual Chuck, honestly. Yeah. We cut back to Sam in this fucking cage, and he's like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of this cage. He's looking around. He's freaking out, and he sees a dude. The dude who he thought was dead is now kind of getting up and moving around. And he's like, hey. He's like, hey, what's up? And he's like, are you Alvin Jenkins, which is the name of the guy who got kidnapped in the beginning of the episode. The dude's like, oh my God, yeah, I am. Wig. Also, you should be quiet right now because shit's about to go down. And Sam's like, oh, cool. Okay. So the two of them are like sitting there, and a door opens and light turns on, and a light flashes on, and it looks like they're in this barn almost. So Sam's like, okay, cool. These two hooded figures come in. They're not like hooded in the sense that they're wearing like robes. They're hooded in the sense that they are wearing like hoodies, almost like jackets. And they toss some food and like a cup of water into each of the little cages and then leave, and they walk out. And Sam is like, do they do that often? And Alvin is like, once a day, I think. And Sam's like, okay, those are literally just people. Those are not monsters. Those are people. And Alvin's like, okay, what did you expect?
The other guy's like, what?
So then we cut back. So Sam is screaming, crying, throwing up in this cage, right? We cut back to Dean and Kathleen, this deputy. They are driving, and she gets like a notification, and she looks down at her stupid little laptop that cops have in their cars. And then she's like, And she's like, so Gregory, because that's what he's been saying his name was. She's like, I did have them run your badge number, just standard procedure. And she turns the screen around, and she's like, they sent me your picture, said your badge was stolen. It is an older Black man. Gregory is, so almost very clearly not Dean. And Dean's like, oh, I've lost some weight. And she's like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm gonna need you to get out of the car and tell me everything that you are. And he's like, okay, listen, I'm gonna keep it real with you, girly. My Sam, I actually do care a lot about him. I will go to jail. You can arrest me. That is completely fine, but I do need to find Sam first.
And
Please.
This is Sam's my responsibility, and I'm bringing him back. The whole thesis of the show moment. This is also his Valjean moment where he's like, fine, you can arrest me, but I have to save Cosette first.
No, literally, he is the Valjean-ification. But he is like, I genuinely, he's like, I don't care. Like, you can arrest me. I will do whatever, but I have to save Sam.
And then he does under his white woman crying her way out of an arrest era.
He does.
Yeah. So I'm like, damn, Dean, what the fuck?
No, he is ready. Full Karen.
Yeah. And then he's like, please, he's my family. And you're like, damn, white privilege is just hell of a drug.
No, it is crazy. So she's like, okay. Then as this is happening, it cuts back. Sam has like been ripping this electrical cable out of the wall that is like just kind of fallen on top of his cage. He is like pulling this shit. He pulls it open, and Jenkins is being like, dang, you are crazy. But Sam pulls this cable, and he's like, well, that didn't do anything. Then Jenkins' cell door just kind of pops open, and Sam is like, that feels really easy. That doesn't feel right. And Jenkins is like, oh my God, dude, I'm free. I'm going to go. I'll get help. Don't worry. And he's like, oh, I don't think you should do that. That seems like it might be kind of a trap. Might be a trap. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go. Goodbye, Sam. And he leaves, and the cell doors like swing shut and lock remotely. So Sam's like, uh-oh, that's not good. And then it shows Jenkins outside running in the rain. He's like, oh my God. He finds a knife, and he's like, okay, I got to get out of here. Then he gets ambushed by some dude. But he's like, I gotta keep going. He tries to run, but another man shows up and like tackles him. And then he gets stuck on a tripwire, and these two men kill him in cold blood. And Sam hears him screaming, and he's like, well, that is okay. So, it cuts back to Dean, and he's like, Kathleen, please, I need to save my little guy. And Kathleen's like, okay, fine, I won't arrest you right now. Fine, you can come with me. I'm like, girl, he stole it off. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, great, police. Girl, that is quite bad. Like, that is wicked, not something he could be like a violent killer. He could be the person doing it. He didn't even
technically he is a violent killer.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you helping me? And then she gives this little backstory.
Yeah, because she finally agrees. I'm like, girl, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I'm actually going through my Javert arc, actually. Stars in their multitudes, scarce to be counted. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, girly, what?
She's like, fine, I'm going to help you for one reason, and it's that my brother disappeared in the same way. Like, he was just gone, and I felt really bad. So I am going to help you, and then I'm going to arrest you. And he's like, wig, okay.
Also, speaking of true crime, the police, whatever, they mentioned earlier in this episode that this is like the missing persons capital of whatever, that like has the most number of missing people. And I was like, okay, so number one, why did they think this was something supernatural? It could have been trafficking, and not in the like, oh my God, girly, they're going to snatch you at the Target kind of trafficking, but like clearly people trafficking people they know, which is how it really happens. You should find out more information about human trafficking that is not from Polaris. Anyway, so there's a piece of it there, but then I'm like, the reality is also that like a lot of these crimes do not go investigated because of the way our system is built and the way that it helps trafficking, actually, because the prison industrial system, whatever you want to call it, it makes it so that a lot of murders never get solved, or like human trafficking can keep happening because we criminalize sex work and all this kind of stuff. So when we get into this episode, when just people are getting motherfucking snatched, and it has become like, yeah, people just get snatched here. It gets a little too realistic, where even the police person is like, yeah, just never found my brother. Fuck it. I guess it's going to take some random guy committing a crime in my literal car for me to go, so maybe we should investigate this. At first, when I first watched this episode, I was like, there's got to be some corruption or something here, but that is not what they do. They're just like,
yeah, they're just
they
like,
explain it a little later, but you're like,
yeah.
okay, but what about the corruption of the police? Anyway,
there's something else. To be fair, do you really want the Winchesters to be at the helm of fixing the fixing the policing system?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I did. That's what I thought. There's also something I just remembered that happens later in this episode that has to do with like the amount of people missing. But we'll talk about it.
Oh yeah,
we'll talk about it when we get there. So they are tracking down this truck, and they are going to like try to find somewhere that it could have pulled off between the camera that they looked at and the next road camera, like the next speed trap. So they find this place, this like pull off, and they pull over, and they both get out, and Kathleen is like, okay, you stay here. And Dean's like, no, I'm going to come with you. And she's like, oh my gosh. Okay, here. Can you hold this for me? And he's like, yeah, sure. He puts his arm out, and she handcuffs him to the car door handle.
He literally got Charlie Browned with the football.
It is actually quite funny. Like, I'm like, okay, girl, you did kind of spill with that one, but
this man killed God, but he also got tricked.
Yeah, by a police officer, by a silly little deputy. But she turns around and she's like, okay, I'm gonna go and figure out what's going on. You stay here, whore. So she walks up she doesn't say that, but that's what it felt like. So
he is a whore, so
yeah. She turns around and walks down this path, and she comes up to a house, and she's like, oh, interesting. She knocks on the door, and this girl who's like probably like a young teen, like a preteen, answers, and her hair is long and like it's not like matted, but it's definitely dirty. Like she is covered in dirt.
She looks like the Ring, the fucked up little guy from the Ring.
Yeah, her clothes are like kind of tattered. And she's clearly like, okay, this is not right. And she's like, hi, what's your name? And she's like, I'm Missy. And she's like, okay. Is your mommy here? And she's like, my mom is dead. She's like, okay, is your daddy here? And she's like, that one's gonna hurt. And then this dude hits Kathleen with a shovel and knocks her out. And then they start walking out to where her car is, and Dean is still handcuffed to the car. So he is like screaming, crying. He is trying to get the antenna, like the radio antenna. He is unscrewing the antenna and picking the lock of his handcuffs with it, which is he's very like,
I wish I had my fucking little paper clip like I did last time I got handcuffed. Yeah. I'm fucked.
Dean needs to get a pocket knife. I feel like he's got all these actual knives, but he doesn't have like a pocket knife.
Yeah. Also, side note, this is from the trivia section. That little girl, Missy, she does come back to Supernatural.
Really?
Not the character, the
actress.
This is gonna, I forgot that this happened. Not only have multiple actors and writers stated that Missy Bender is the scariest thing from Supernatural, which makes sense. Alexia Fast, the actress who played Missy Bender, also appeared in season 7 when she played Dean's Amazon daughter. Remember when Dean shot and killed his own daughter?
I completely forgot about that.
I did too. Season 7, I blocked from my little brain.
Season 7, girl, you were not normal.
Yeah.
Season 7 gotta be one of the worst.
Yeah, he conceived. Remember when he had a one night stand with an Amazon and she tried, and then apparently she had a kid, and then he meets her and she tries to kill Dean. And I forgot, she's kind of like Jack in that, like
she grew up real fast.
Yeah, she's a Renesmee baby.
Dean, what is wrong with you? You're not shooting blanks, my friend.
Yeah, and she was like born like 2 days after she was conceived, so he like has a one night stand and then suddenly he has like a teenage daughter. Yeah, that's the same actor as Missy Bender.
Wow, thank you for that recounting. I will be sure to wipe my brain off with bleach after this.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that until we get to season 7 again.
Season 7 is going to be a rough time for this podcast, and I apologize ahead of time.
We're going to be so mean.
We are not going to be friendly. Season 7,
there's not a lot of Castiel in that season either.
I would argue that there's barely anything good in that season. Dean breaks out. He's like, I'm good. He gets away, gets out of these handcuffs as the two gentlemen who were walking down the path get in the cop car and drive away. So he's like, well, cool, they have just stolen that car. Kathleen wakes up in a cell like next to Sam, and Sam is like, hey girly, and she's like, ow, what happened, where are we? And he's like, oh, we're in a cage and there's some guys who have kidnapped us. And she's like, okay, cool, oh my god, are you Sam? And he's like, yeah, I am. And she's like, your cousin is looking for you. And he's like, oh, wig, awesome, he will be here soon, I'm sure of it. And she's like, cool. So I guess we will just hang out and wait. And as she says that, Dean walks in and he's like, oh my god, hey guys, I'm here to save you. I am going to go find a key to unlock this. And Sam's like, oh, it's a like electric lock. And he goes and he's like, I still need a key to do it. So
he's like, I just picked a lock, but this one's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So... And Sam is like, Dean, these are just like normal people. These are humans. And Dean's like, oh, this is not, our regular playmates are not like this. And he says what I think actually sums up why I really like this episode. He's like, demons have patterns. People are crazy. They're unpredictable, which I really like. I like Dean's blind spot being people. Like it feels very like, it's very like emblematic of him as a person.
Yeah, because he's neurodivergent and minor.
Exactly.
But also, like, I mean, he's just saying it from like a logical point of view, whatever. Also, imagine being the woman, Kathleen, the cop, like listening to this, being like, what the fuck? Because they're talking about demons and their usual playmates. Like, she must think they're into some weird shit or something. Like,
I mean, are they not?
I mean, they are, but like, in the other way. And and like this is our first like sometimes humans are the real monsters episode. Like we don't have that many of them. But they kind of do these every so often to remind maybe the viewers and also the Winchesters, like, hey, humanity kind of sucks ass.
Yeah, like you guys have got issues.
Like, I know you guys are like saving the world and everything, and like there's like fucked up shit all the time, but also people are just dying for regular ass reasons all the time. Sorry about that. Sorry. And the two of them are like, anyway, so that's none of my business.
Yeah, they're like very cringe, but sometimes people do in fact die. This scene is troubling.
Oh my god.
So he's like, I'm gonna go look for a key, and she's like, what is happening? And he's like, yeah, it's fucked up. I found a bunch of like cars outside. I guess it's of people that they've kidnapped. And she's like, did you see a black Mustang that's like 10 years old by any chance? And he's like, I did. Was that your brother's? And she's like, yeah, it was. He's like, oh, I'm really sorry about that, but I do have to go get a key, so I'm gonna go. So he is going to get this key, and he is like walking through this basement, and he finds like trophies that they've taken, like teeth that kind of stuff.
I am not fucking with you. I am not fucking with you. He bumps into like a little wind chime made out of like human jaws. Listen, there's been some disgusting and scary shit on this. Like they have fought God. They have been tortured on a rack in hell. This, when he bumps into this,
not
or
good.
the jar of teeth, that is the thing that is the most fucked up and supernatural. I was like, no, if I was Dean and I touched the fucking human jaw chandelier, a wind chime, I would have self-immolated. Like I would have killed myself.
Like literally, I would have simply stopped existing. But I don't think that's even like the worst part. For me, the worst part in this episode is that as he's walking up these stairs, he sees these photographs lining the walls, and he's looking at them, and it's like people like being posed like game, like when hunters like kill deer and shit.
They put this shit on network fucking television.
Yeah, so it's literally just these dudes posing with dead bodies that they've like killed like animals. It's like, it's sickening.
Also,
I fear that is one of the things that I'm like, that is deeply upsetting to me. I don't get rattled very easily watching this because I fear I find it too funny sometimes. But this, I was like, oh, that is very upsetting.
Yeah, I was like, Supernatural briefly entered its like CSI actual serial killer arc, and I was like, oh, that's why I don't watch that shit, because this is scary as fuck. And the other scary, I think the scene is actually quite well constructed. Like it builds the tension. Like again, Dean has fought some scary shit on this show. Nothing compares to him going around this house while when you start to hear the sound of the guy sharpening the fucking bone saw in the back.
Yeah, he's going up the stairs, and he like kind of looks into like the main living area, and he sees this man. It's like he's using a bone saw to cut something, and we don't see what it is, but it is making the most horrendous noise I've ever heard. And Dean is like, okay, that dude's cutting up like a person or something. And he's like, people are crazy and very scary. So he is like, okay, he's looking around, and they're playing, the dude is playing like classical music on like a Victrola, which is like the thing that you put the record on, and it's got the speaker on it. But he's listening to music on that. So it's like this scary old music. And Dean is like looking around this house trying to find the keys. He sees the keys.
Actually, it's Sweet and Lowdown by George Gershwin that's playing.
It is Gershwin, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah,
I knew I recognized it.
Spooky Americana, which God, you go out there. I will also say, I noticed this earlier. Obviously, lots of TV shows reuse sets and whatever. The house from the outside, they have definitely used in other episodes.
Yeah, it is definitely familiar.
They definitely used it from other episodes, but also the interior. They made it look raggedy as fuck for this. Like, it was like, I know that you hunt people, but why do you have to live like Miss Havisham?
No, they live in like squalor. Like this house is dirty.
Yeah, but I definitely reckon like they definitely just like when you see it in a motel scene, it's the same structure. It's definitely this house is different. I'm just like, shout out to the set decorators, because you made this shit
nasty,
raggediest, nastiest fucking house.
No, it's like dirty. I'm like, guys, just because you are freaks who hunt people does not mean that you don't need to own a Swiffer.
Yeah, like if I was Hannibal, I'd walk in and be like, white refrigerator.
To be fair, Hannibal has class. That's not a fair comparison.
Exactly. Well, and also,
if Hannibal was here, this wouldn't be happening.
Here's the other thing. I don't think they eat the people. Hannibal is like, I hunt ethically. I use all the pieces of the animal. And also I don't live in fucking squalor.
Yeah.
These people are just fucked up.
Yeah. Hannibal's like, I'm too busy being wealthy. Sorry, guys. This really is a commentary on class in America. When you think about it, it's not. Anyway, so Dean is like gonna go for these keys. And this little girl who answered the door earlier for Kathleen, Missy, she is like, hey. And he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. And she's like, I know. And then stabs him and pins his jacket to the door frame. And she's like, hey, Dad. He then shows up and beats the shit out of Dean. Dean's like fighting. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take you out. Then I'm going to take you out. And then an older gentleman, who I assume is like the father of the family, beats his ass from behind. Dean wakes up. He is tied to a chair.
But the sound that it makes, it's like Entangled when she beats him over the head with the it's like a comical like cartoon kind of sound.
It's like
just like, oh, and like he was clearly added in fully later, but God, it worked so well.
It was perfect.
It's literally like a frying pan. Like it's very funny actually. And it cuts the tension well, because I literally thought Dean was gonna eat it. And
how funny would it be if Dean died in this episode?
I mean,
he got killed by fucking people.
Well, I mean, he kind of did.
No, this is something that I did not realize, but the wiki has informed me of. So Dean wakes up and he's tied to this chair. And the gentleman, the older guy, whose name is apparently Pa Bender, because he's Pa, because it's dad. He is like, goes on this speech about how he's like, my favorite thing to hunt. I've hunted bears. I've hunted bears. I've hunted deer. But my favorite hunt is human. And we've been doing it for generations.
And he's got like fucked up teeth.
Yeah. And he's like, and it's like him, he's got his two sons and Missy, the daughter, standing there. And he's like, we've been doing fine until you showed up and a bunch of cops start kicking around. So are you going to bring cops here? And Dean's like, I don't have to say anything to you. What are you guys going to, yeah, you can eat me. Oh, but don't actually do it. No, I fear I would say that as a joke, but you guys might actually eat me. And the guy is like, okay, well, here's the funny thing. So if you don't, are you going to bring cops here? He's like, I'm not telling you shit. So he's like, okay, cool. Lee, who's one of the other guys. He's like, hey, buddy, which one do you want him to kill first? The bitch or the guy? And he says bitch a lot. Like he calls her a bitch a lot. So he's like, okay, no. No cops are going to come. I promise it's just me. You don't have to kill them. And he's like, okay, so I have this hot poker here, like a metal poker that he had just stuck in the fire. And he's like, okay, I'm going to burn your shoulder quite bad. And now you're going to tell me which one we should hunt first, the bitch or the dude? And he's like, take the guy. Because he's like, in his mind, it's kind of implied, like, he's like, okay, Sam can defend himself. He knows what he's doing. And then I'll bust out and help him. And Pa is like, cool. Hey, Lee, shoot the boy. Don't let him out of the cage. And then take the bitch. And Dita's like, I thought you said you were going to give them a fair chance. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Teehee.
It's quite dark.
The fucking holding the hot poker near his eye. I was legitimately fucking terrified during this.
Yeah, it's quite scary. He is like, I'm going to take your eye out with this hot poker. So then it cuts to Lee, one of the guys, opening the cage that Sam is in. And he levels a gun at him and shoots. But Sam was like, jumps out of the way. And with the cable that he pulled down earlier when he was still talking to Alvin, Mr. Jenkins, he pulls that out and throws it at this dude. And then Sam just like ambushes this dude and like beats the shit out of him, takes his rifle, tries to cock it, but it looks like it's like busted or something. It's not working. So he's like, awesome, cool, throws it on the ground. So he's like, okay, cool, I'm putting Lee in the cage. Kathleen, let's go. So he lets Kathleen out. They put Lee in the cage and they're waiting. Pa and Jared roll up and they're like, hey, what happened to Lee? We heard a gunshot, but he didn't come back. The power gets cut off. They see Lee in the cage and he's unconscious and they're like, uh-oh, that's no good. So they start searching the barn and Sam and Kathleen jump Jared and then he's about to kill her and there's this scuffle. And Sam like jumps between Pa and Jared and then Jared turns and shoots the dad. Sam knocks Jared out and is like, I'm going to go find Dean. Pa has been shot, but he is not dead. So Pa is lying on the ground, right? And he's like, okay, Jared's out. You stay here, Kathleen. I'm going to go get Dean. He runs into the house. And then we get this scene of Kathleen with Pa on the ground. And he's like, oh, it's personal for you. And she's like, you killed my brother. And he's like, I really don't care. Like, we do this for sport and I'll do it again. And it's her like holding this gun at him, like leveling it at him, like holding him hostage. She gets kind of a look in her eye and then the scene cuts and we hear a gunshot. So it does seem that she did just shoot this human. It's giving cop. So, yeah. You know, and I know he did, like, to be fair,
he does hunt people
in
for
all
sport.
Fairness to her, he does hunt people for sport and did lock her and like a bunch of other people in a cage, including her brother. So I'm like, I do kind of get it. But she did just shoot this unarmed old man lying on the ground.
I'm like, lots to unpack here. This was the part where I went, is this episode propaganda? I think it is.
I know, no, I can't tell because also I'm like, I fear that I'm like, okay, she's not wrong for like I get it, but also
but that's why it's like, propaganda. Yeah, that's why.
It's like she's just guns this dude. It's like it's definitely he's abhorrent, and we on this podcast have definitely been like, you know, sometimes if you're bad,
yeah, but she's an agent of the state, and that's different. That's the difference.
Yeah,
not to be like serious or anything, but like the whole thing of this episode is like when the hunters become the hunted, and also the are we the monsters, like who are we to decide who lives and dies kind of thing with Sam and Dean. And that is kind of the whole like thing of prison abolition also of like who gets to decide who lives and dies even if they're a shit ass person.
Exactly.
And in this case, like the whole struggle with Sam and Dean is them being like, okay, well, we are not cops. We are not the state. We are not God, literally.
Like we are just going to kill. We are going to stop people if that is the only option.
Yeah. And their whole thing also is, and nobody else should be able to do that either. Not even God. Which is why they often have to remind each other of like, hey, we don't just like fucking kill people. It's an interesting thematic thing that I think that the show does by accident a lot.
Yeah, I think too is like, this thing, so like she kills this guy, and this is the weird part to me. It's not weird, but it's just I think it's interesting, and it's like, okay, how are they trying to make me feel about this? Because I'm watching this like being like, what is the intention? And I think that is really telling in this next scene. So Kathleen comes outside and Sam has come with Dean. He's like, oh, I found him. And she is like, oh, where's the little girl? And Sam and Dean are like, oh, she's locked up and tied in a closet. She's like, awesome. They're like, okay, well, where's Pa? And she's like, he was trying to escape, so I shot him. He was, spoiler alert for the audience, he was not trying to escape. He had just been shot. He was not going anywhere.
Cops lie.
Hashtag cops lie. But she's like, yeah, anyway. So Sam and Dean are like, okay, cool. And she's like, I'm going to go radio for help. Yeah, the cops are going to show up, and you did steal the badge of a state policeman. So you may have to, that is quite bad. And they are going to want to ask questions. And Sam and Dean are like, oh, okay. And she's like, you guys should start walking and get out of here before they get here. Goodbye. So they turn around and they leave. And then they're just kind of shooting the shit with each other.
And Dean goes, great. So we left our car at the police station. Can I get a ride? And she's like, no, start fucking walking.
Which I'm like, okay, slay. I fear she is one of those people who I'm like, she has moments where I'm like, you are very funny. This episode is weird. I think we've already kind of said our piece about like the police aspect of it. What I will talk about that I really like about this episode, one of my biggest gripes with the genre of horror is seeing the monster too early. And I think what's cool about stuff where it's like, oh, the people are the monsters, is that even when you see the monster and you know what it is, it's still scary because you don't know what's going to happen. So Dean being like, oh, the people are crazy, I'm like, so true. Because I was on pins and needles because I do not remember watching this episode the first time. So I was like genuinely like, I don't know how this is going to shake out. It was very exciting.
I couldn't remember what, like once they got about halfway through, then I remembered. And I was like, now that I remember, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the people are just fucked up episode. The beginning of the episode is kind of wild because I'm like, how are they snatching people under cars?
Yeah. Okay, here's the other thing too. One thing, the thing that spurs Kathleen to kill Pa is she's like, oh, you killed my brother. And he's like, yeah, because it's fun. Like, he's like, I like killing people. I think it's fun. I love the love of the sport. But what's funny too is earlier, so he's kind of making it like, oh, we hunt people and kill people all the time. And like all of these disappearances imply that they are doing it crazy. Earlier in the episode, when Dean is tied to the chair, Pa is like, well, we've never had trouble with police. We keep it down to only 2 hunts a year. I'm like, 2 hunts a year? So you're telling me you kidnap 2 people a year and that is driving this place's per capita kidnapping number up? Like, I fear that they may also have an issue with some sort of human trafficking. Like, I don't think that this is the serve they think it is, because these people, as fucked up as they are, I don't think they are kidnapping that many people.
Unless they're kidnapping more people and they're just like killing some of them and then only some of them get to do the little fucking Hunger Games. Like that part did not make it. It's almost like they wrote the first half and then they forgot and then they wrote the second.
No, literally, I'm like, were you guys like, who was like, were they starting writing it and they were like, okay, so this is going to be about this place where a bunch of people are going to, oh wait, hey, hold on, my lunch is here, can you finish this episode, intern? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just very funny to me.
It's
because that being said, like, I still really like this episode. I don't want to be a CinemaSins type critic where I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense, because my thought is, would I have enjoyed it more if it made sense? And the answer is no.
It's supernatural. It's not like I'm enjoying myself in general.
Oh, the other thing too, I think it's interesting that this is Minnesota, because they really are giving these guys a very rural, like, they have like country accents. And I'm like, there are like rural people, like people who live in rural areas in Minnesota do have like a very, like an accent, but it's not the same accent that they've given these men.
Again, I think they forgot like, from the first half to the second half.
Because it was giving like Arkansas. It was very like Arkansas, if anything. Like, it was very like Southern, like true deep South accents. And I'm just very interesting that there have been like, we're explicitly setting this in Minnesota.
They just said, Americana, am I right?
And you know what? And they were so right for that, because I enjoyed the episode.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing with us in our scheduling hiccup during one of the apparently craziest times in supernatural news. For more cursed supernatural content, follow us on social media at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. On TikTok, we have a Q&A function. And we would love if people would ask us questions, because then we can answer them about either supernatural lore or just whatever the fuck we can remember about this. Go talk to us in our TikTok Q&A. You can also email us at themysteryspotcast@gmail.com if you have questions and you don't have a TikTok account. If you enjoyed listening to us suffer, please rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Overcast. It really helps people discover our show. We very much appreciate it. And if you want to hear more from us, we are also 2 of the co-hosts of RuPaul's Pod Race. It is a queer Star Wars podcast. And obviously we have a lot of great stuff in store for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It's about to get crazy up in this bitch.
Yeah, it's about to be a problem.
The internet is about to be fucking crazy, and so is our podcast. See you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things. the supernatural business.